Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, in publication for 75 years this year. How cool is that? I am so excited about tonight's show. My guest is JoAnne DiMaggio, and she is just brilliant. She likes to call herself a reporter for the universe. I think that's pretty accurate. She is just fabulous. She's internationally recognized as a researcher, teacher, author, and past-life therapist. She's published 6 books, hundreds of magazine articles for both mainstream and esoteric audiences, and offers a full array of esoteric and therapeutic services. They encompass one-on-one private soul writing and past-life therapy sessions. Digital and self-guided learning courses are coming soon to her webpage. Literature to the hungering soul to rekindle their higher awareness and use of gifts, attributes, and goals they incarnate with again and again. She is really quite a brilliant person. She has written Your Soul Remembers, which is accessing your past lives through soul writing. Karma Can Be a Real Pain. Past life clues to current life maladies. I Did It to Myself. Again. New Life Between Lives case studies show how your soul's contract is guiding your life. Soul Writing, Conversing with Your Higher Self, and her recent book, Edgar Cayce and the Unfulfilled Destiny of Thomas Jefferson Reborn. We're going to be discussing that. I welcome you to Fate Magazine Radio, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Kat. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I've been looking forward to it as well.
Well, I think that there are kindred spirits that just recognize their energy. I know that you believe that. Mm-hmm. And the soul writing, you know, you've got others that are things that are close and dear to my heart with your soul remembers. Karma can be a real pain, which, girl, is that not the truth? I mean,
literally.
You have so much information out there, and I know that you have been researching this forever.
Mm-hmm.
But what did you know that you had this talent, this gift, this recognition when you were young? Or is this something that as you developed and found an interest in, and you realized it was evolving into more than an interest, but a memory?
Mm-hmm.
How did this actually come to you?
Well, I was interested in reincarnation as a teenager, or maybe even younger than that. Over the summer, I would read books about Edgar Cayce and books written by Ruth Montgomery and Jess Stern and people like that. And I remember one summer I read The Search for Bridie Murphy, which was published sometime in the 50s. And that I grew up Catholic, very Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. But, you know, the Catholic dogma, it just didn't make any sense to me. The whole idea of sin and hell and all of that, it didn't fit in with what I thought a loving, just God would do to, you know, his creation.
Right.
So I decided to, you know, when I started reading these books, they made absolute sense to me. So I was doing that when I was a teenager. And then I also noticed that I had this penchant for 18th century American history. That started as a child as well. And as I got into college, it grew deeper and deeper. I actually ended up majoring in 18th century history. And my professor said to me, he said, you know, you've got the most uncanny feel for the 18th century of any student I've ever had. And I thought, yeah, you know, I do. I don't know how I know all of this information. It just sort of comes to me. Mm-hmm. When I would write an essay, I mean, it would just flow. And so that lasted all through college. And then, you know, then I just sort of mainstreamed my life. I got married, had a family, forgot all about everything. Until 1987, when Shirley MacLaine's book, Out on a Limb, was made into a miniseries on ABC, 2 nights in January, and that totally changed my life. It was like the moment I saw the part about her belief in reincarnation, it just lit me up, and all that passion just came out, and I thought, this is where I'm going to put all my energy. So since 1987, I've been a member of Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment. I had my own past life research organization when I lived in the Chicago area. And it's been just a part of my life. I didn't start writing anything until much, much later. But in the meantime, I was doing my homework. I was studying and reading everything I could, attending conferences, and just really immersing myself in that whole metaphysical bubble and absorbing as much information as I possibly could. And so over the years, it's expanded, it's developed. And after my first book on soul writing came out, I believe that was 2011, I have been writing books ever since.
Well, now soul writing is something that I'm interested in. Is this a variation on scrying, or is this a completely different experience?
No, it's soul writing. Basically, how I would describe soul writing is, if you think of prayer as you talking to God, meditation is God talking to you, soul writing is you taking notes.
Okay.
It's a written form of meditation is basically what it is. And Edgar Cayce taught it. He called it inspirational writing. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of confusion about it because people were doing automatic writing, which the ARE has listed as like the number one no not to do. And there's good reason for that. So it is not automatic writing. There's a difference between the two of them, and which would take a while to describe. But in any event, it is writing in an altered state of consciousness.
But not allowing your body to be utilized to do the writing.
Exactly.
You're still doing it.
You're doing the writing, right? It's coming from above. It's coming from a divine source, coming through you, throughout your soul, down your arm, into your hand, and onto the paper. Yeah.
Well, is it difficult to teach? Because I know that when I'm in meditation, I don't think I would have any trouble with doing that. In fact, I'm going to try that. But it seems like something that some people might be concerned about for whatever reason, and that's known, to them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it should be that difficult, does it?
No. Most people can do it on their first try. I just came from Virginia Beach, where I gave a 2.5-hour talk on soul writing, and at the end of the session, my talk, then the folks in the audience were given an opportunity to do the writing. And then I'm going to go back to Virginia Beach to ARE headquarters in July 21st to the 23rd, and I'm doing a 3-day intensive certification course in soul writing. So basically what I cover is, all the ways you can apply soul writing to your life, and there are many, many ways it can be applied. And then how to do it, how to set up your space, and then, what are the steps in doing it. And once you know those, it's really, the important steps are simply that you say a prayer of protection, surround yourself with white light, then you go into your meditation, and then you just allow spirit to come, for the information to come into your soul and out your hand onto the paper. The reason that it's so controversial is, and why some people are fearful of it, and one of the reasons ARE has always said no on automatic writing, is because they're concerned about possession.
Yes.
There are a lot of, they had some cases years ago when Edgar Cayce's son, Hugh Lynn, was still alive and at ARE. And as a matter of fact, in his book, Venturing Inward, he does share the case studies of people who came there who got into trouble with the automatic writing, that a lower level entity or energy,
right,
able to come through because people opened the door and they didn't use any protection to surround themselves with. And so these always, these lower level energies are always looking for a way to get in. And they opened themselves up to that. They got in, and then they got into trouble. So so that's why we're very cautious. I do spend some time in the course teaching people the difference between the two and what to watch out for. And I think sometimes, though, people use the term automatic writing, and they're actually doing soul writing, but they don't know any difference. They don't know that the automatic writing is dangerous, right? It's just like the Ouija board, right? We figured the Ouija board was produced by Parker Brothers and sold to Toys R Us. So how dangerous could that be? And yet the Ouija board is the number 2 no at the ARE.
Well, it's just understandably. I mean, I have had cases where I was asked to go into a home with someone who had been using a Ouija board, and I do not feel that it is a safe toy. But the individual, instead of asking for, someone to communicate with them, said, "Is there anything here?"
Oh, yikes!
Definitely, verbiage is a.
Oh yeah, words have power. Yeah, words are definitely powerful.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, and I get a lot of grief because I started out just as a paranormal researcher, and I'm very vocal about things that I think are dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But I have found that I got drawn into that, I think, because the spiritualism is really fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like getting a chance to talk to someone like you who is so well versed and have your own methodologies and are recognized as truly an expert in your field.
Thank you.
I'm not kidding. I have been so looking forward to this interview. But we are going to go ahead and take our first break so that we can get past that.
Okay.
And we'll be right back. And for our listeners, y'all come back too. This is just going to be so interesting. So, see you on the flip side.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back for the second segment of Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And I am here tonight and so looking forward to this conversation. I've been trying to get all my ducks in a row and just having so much fun doing it and learning about her. And my guest is JoAnne DiMaggio, M-A-C-H-T. And one of the things, JoAnne, that I've really enjoyed is I'm reading all the things about you and getting into some of your background, is that you say that you're a reporter for the universe and that writing is part of your spiritual DNA. I think that's awesome.
That way has really helped me stay on track. You know, I just felt like I've been a writer in many other lifetimes, and I felt as though I was kind of plopped here to observe what's going on around me and to write about it and then disseminate the information to as many people as will read, what I've written. So that's been my driving force. It's been my soul's mission. in this life. So the writing is the most important element of all of this. I love the research, and all of my books are based on research projects. None of them, excuse me, none of them are just me pontificating on a topic. It's all based on a topic that I've either had volunteers coming in for to do a research project, or in the case of this book about Casey and TJ, it was me spending many, many hours in the Edgar Casey Foundation archives, and going through old files and interviewing people, including TJ himself. He's still alive, by the way, and so it took me 8 years to do that book, but at times it was very frustrating, and I put it down for months at a time, and then I would go back to it because I felt as though I had made a pre-life promise to TJ's soul that I would write this book. So even though I faced a lot of obstacles in writing, and a lot of people did not want me to write the book, and even now, I mean, it's like the ARE won't allow me to present the material in Virginia Beach because he had gotten such a really nasty reputation, and so a lot of people didn't want anything to do with him. But my whole purpose of that book was to show that the role of free will. And so from a past life point of view, that's where I was focused. Like, you can have the most lofty past lives, but doesn't mean that your next one is going to be even more famous or even more successful, because you go up and up and down and up and down. Casey says, in this life the soul gained, or in this life the soul lost. So even though this soul that had been Thomas Jefferson and also had been Alexander the Great, by the way, yes. He has had an extremely difficult life this time around, and he did not do what Casey predicted he would do. But there's a reason for it, and that's he's always been looked down on, that he didn't live up to the big prophecy that Casey had for him, which was that this soul could do for the world what Jefferson did for this country. Well, of course he didn't do that, and everybody has just been really down on him because of that. How could you not fulfill that, or work on that at least? But there's a reason for it, and I knew there was a reason for it, and I wanted to at least present that side of it so people would understand that in any given life, we take different roads. We come to a crossroads and we may go in a different direction depending on our choices. Or in his case, since he was a child, on the decisions that his mother and father made on his behalf, which changed the whole course of his life.
Well, people don't necessarily realize that if you are living through a lifetime, it's not just you, it's your environment. Mm-hmm. There are so many things. You can be here with the greatest sense of purpose, and you can just get gobsmacked right as you're going through it. Right. What you perceive to be the path you're supposed to be on, because other people are also living their karmic lives, mm-hmm. and you may just be the wrong person or the right person, but in the wrong place, or vice versa. And I did not start really understanding karma until about 5 or 6 years ago. Well, a little longer than that, but close. When I read a book and I had things that happened in my life that I felt were grossly unfair, and I was a kid, and why am I always having to be so strong and an overcomer? And my dad actually said to me one day, I just admire what a strong woman you are. And I'm like, well, kind of tired of being strong right now, Dad. And he just looked at me. But those things do come into play, and they can affect can affect your outcomes
Mm-hmm.
with things that weren't exactly under your control, but that your responses to them were.
Right.
So,
In my book, I did it to myself again. I look at, I take people, the volunteers in that project went back to the past life that's most impacting them today. We went through all of that. Then they went into the afterlife where they planned the life that they're having right now. Because I've been doing past life work for over 35 years. And one of the common patterns that I see are people saying, oh, it's my father's fault. It's my mother's fault. It's my sibling. They blame everybody for what's going on in their life, not realizing that a lot of planning went into this life, and you set up the circumstances in which were optimal for you to learn whatever lesson your soul needed to learn in this life. So you brought in the karmic issues from that previous lifetime to address. And when you chose your parents before you were born, you took into consideration the socioeconomic condition you'd be born into, what your race or nationality or religious background would be. You knew what country you'd be born into. So you thought, well, this will really be the perfect environment for me to work on these issues. And then members of your soul family, while you were planning this life out, knew what it is you wanted to accomplish in this life and said, I'm going to come in with you, right, and I'm going to help you with those issues. Now, if your issue was abandonment, if you had abandoned somebody in a prior life and you're going to come into this life to balance that out, then at some point in this life, somebody's going to abandon you. Yeah. And they very well could say that to you. I'm going to, at some point, and you're going to, oh my gosh, you're going to be so angry with them and hate them and, blame them and all of that. But from a soul level, they're helping you balance out that karma because they love you. They love you on a soul level so deeply. They want you to move forward. They don't want that shackle around you anymore of that past karmic debt that you owe. So it's very, Kat, for me, it's just so logical. It is so, it's so harmonious. Everything is balanced, which is the thing that I love the most because, like I said, growing up Catholic, it wasn't balanced at all. And I didn't understand the whole concept of sin compared to karma. They just didn't line up. Because karma is cause and effect. One way or the other, you're going to answer for what you've done. Whereas with sin, it was like, go to confession, say 10 Our Fathers and 10 Hail Marys, and it'll be all gone. It doesn't quite work that way. So this made more sense to me than anything else. And I have been a passionate follower and student of reincarnation theory now for over 30 years.
And I know that this was a very big topic. I was very, our family for a very long time was very conventional, except for my grandma, who followed Jean Dixon religiously, believed in everything that we're talking about here, and was not ashamed to get her spiritual side up. And at the time, for a very long time, I didn't understand a lot of that. And as she got sicker and closer to passing, I think that she released a lot of that to go toward the religious side a little more. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what she did at the end because I was in Georgia. I wasn't here when she died. And I just always wondered what she chose as her comfort zone at that point. Mm-hmm. Because she was very cool. Very what is it that I always say? She was she was very into this before it was a thing. Very New Age, before New Age was a thing.
Mm.
And I thought that was fun. I did think it was fun. I mean, she was a hoot. A hoot and a half. But where did you actually realize? I mean, I know that you were doing religious studies and seeing all the things in your research. When did you actually decide that karma and the past life regressions and just the soul writing, I guess, is what kind of led you into that through meditation? I may be wrong, but what actually pulled you into becoming so involved and so, this is what I'm doing, as opposed to just kind of working through different New Age, air quotes, kind of things?
I think it was because, again, I go back to the Shirley MacLaine influence. But prior to that, I had this, as I mentioned, this uncanny feel for the 18th century, and I didn't understand why. It made no sense. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a very blue collar neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. And the idea that I would someday be a past life researcher was just, out of the realm of believability. But even as a child, when I had all these, I used to dress for Halloween every year. I would wear a long dress and have my hair in ringlets. I would write with a feather pen, with it, dip it in the ink and then write with it. I loved Baroque music. I listened to that harpsichord music all the time. I just loved, when I'd go to the library, I'd get books on Abigail Adams and Dolly Madison. So where would that interest come from? Where would that, it made no sense. It didn't fit into what my life was like. And I always wondered why. And then my curiosity about, growing up in the Catholic Church and questioning a lot of what we were taught, because it didn't make any sense to me. And then finding this other avenue that did make sense to me, I just started to, like I said, I just naturally started to get into it. The soul writing, I actually started doing as a 9-year-old. And it was totally by accident. I didn't know what it was. I continued to do that in school, in college. I wasn't a very good student. I didn't like to read all the material, and I loved listening to the lectures, but that was about it. So when I would go in to take my test, it would be an essay. I usually didn't know what the answer was or how to write an essay on this question. So I did I did what I did when I was 9 years old, which was when I was 9, I wanted to develop a secret code.
Right.
So I asked Jesus if he would send me a secret code. And I sat under the sink in my bathroom, and lo and behold, these letters came to me. And I used that as my secret code. Turns out it was actually the Phoenician alphabet, which was from like 1500 BC.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, so I was either pulling it in from the collective consciousness, or I lived then and I knew that alphabet. I don't know. I put it away. That was when I was 9. And then when I was an adult and I took a calligraphy class, that's how I found out it was the Phoenician alphabet, because the instructor pulled down a chart to show what was the very first evidence of handwriting. And sure enough, that was my alphabet. And I thought, how did she know my alphabet? It's 25 years later. But then when I was in college, I would do the same prayer. Oh, Lord, I don't know how to answer this. Please help me out. I put my pen down on the paper. Off it would go. Turn the paper in, get an A.
Get out of town.
And
excellent.
that was that was only though for 18th century history. The rest of it didn't work for anything else. So, like I said, I had the professor tell me I had this uncanny feel for that time period, and so I knew something was going on. And then after Shirley MacLaine came out, I decided I would open a past life a research organization, and it was called Plexus. Mm-hmm. And I had called in speakers, well-known people on the cutting edge of reincarnation research. And I got that, then they became sort of my colleagues, and they encouraged me. And then I got my own certification to do the regressions myself. At first I fought that. I said, no, I'm a writer. I don't want to do therapy. But one of the therapists said, you know more about this than 98% of the therapists that are out there. Why aren't you doing this work? So I said, okay. So I got my certification, and which has been real helpful because I do conduct these research projects. I bring in volunteers, and then based on that, what I find out through the research with them, the regressions that I do with them, and the soul writing that they do, that's what the books are based on. So, because I never wanted anybody to think it was me pontificating about a certain aspect of metaphysical studies. I wanted to present other people's viewpoints and then let you decide on your own. So that's what I've been doing. I've been doing them simultaneously, since the beginning. And I think Spirit right now is urging me to focus more on the soul writing than on the past life work. So we'll see where that leads me.
Well, maybe they feel that that's specifically needed more at this time. I would think that what they have to say would be interesting right now.
Yeah, because, you can use it in so many ways. When I was walking through the University of Virginia's hospital, the cancer center, I saw flyers for people to join with different journaling groups. And soul writing is an excellent tool to use when you want to explore your feelings about a physical illness, or anything else. I mean, there's no limit to what it can be used for. But psychoanalysis and healing is a big one. And I had a associate professor at the Virginia Commonwealth University contacted me. She said she felt she had been cured of breast cancer after reading my book and starting to do the soul writing. She said it introduced her to spirituality, and she was able to get deeper, and that initiated more of her healing. And she's an associate professor in the School of Social Work, and she wanted to be able to teach her students how to use soul writing so that when they graduated, they could use it with their clients to go deeper into the issues that they're dealing with. So it crossed over into mainstream, which is what I always wanted my work to do. I know with the past life work, you get a lot of flack because there's so many people who do not believe in reincarnation. So they think, you're making it all up or whatever. But so there's a small percentage, not even, about 25% in the United States believe in it. But soul writing can transcend that. Soul writing can go into the mainstream world because you can use it in art. I'm doing a book now. My new book is going to be on the Beatles and spirituality.
And that'll be fascinating.
Yeah, I was a Beatles fan club president for many years, 8 years during the 60s and early 70s until they stopped being the Beatles. And I was amazed last summer I was reading every biography that I could get my hands on, and I was amazed at how many references. I found quotes about reincarnation. I had 16 pages of quotes about reincarnation. So my theory in my book is, did they plant the seed of spirituality in our generation that didn't bloom until 20, 30 years later?
I think that answer is going to be yes, but we have to take a break. I'm so sorry.
No.
But we'll be right back. We'll be back before you know it.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm so glad that you are here, because I am having a great time with JoAnne DiMaggio, who is an author. She is a past life regression therapist and researcher. She does really all of the things that you can do with that. She helps others. Her first esoteric book was Soul Writing, Conversing with Your Higher Self, which we have been talking about. And you know, one of the things that we were discussing also is her book, Edgar Cayce and the Unfulfilled Destiny of Thomas Jefferson Reborn. So, trust me, if you've had to miss any of this, we're going to be wherever you get your podcast or streaming, and you can go back and listen to the full show and get everything at one time. No worries. And JoAnne, I had to interrupt you, and I apologize for that. But I'm so glad you're here.
I am too.
So, yeah, you were talking about getting this out, getting the soul writing out, getting into recognizing the I'm so sorry. I just said something very strange.
Myself what I was talking about.
But yeah, I just had music in a room that doesn't have anything to make music, so that's always fun.
That's interesting.
But yeah, nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But do any of the things that you find with people as they're going it through their past lives, I know you're getting information to help them progress through the current one, to maybe find out what is, if something occurred that could have created the situation they find themselves in, whether emotionally, physically, whatever, and try to find a way to heal through that, which is where the regression and the soul writing, I think, would best come hand to hand or hand in hand. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, and I tell people when they come to me, I ask them, what brings you here? Why do you want to do this? A lot of them will say, I don't know why I'm here. That's the big one. Like, what's my purpose? Or some of them is just out of curiosity. But I'm not a reader. I do not tell them a thing about their past life because I don't believe in that. I believe that the information is within and that you have access to it. So what I do is I'm a guide. I guide them accessing that information. So what I do is a very long relaxation in the beginning of the session. I say a prayer of protection, surround them with white light. Keep, relaxing their body, relaxing. Then I take them over a bridge. And when they get to the other side of the bridge, they are in the past life that's most impacting them now. Because you've had many, many, many past lives, but you're not working on all of them at once. You've chosen issues from one particular past life, or maybe two or more than that. And Edgar Cayce would never give anybody more than 4 past lives to work on. But we're going to go visit that lifetime, find out what was the significant event that happened in that life that made a imprint on your soul that was so important that you brought it in with you into this life to either apply it, heal it, resolve it. So they stay with that. They tell me their story. And I go with them in that I can see what they're seeing and experiencing. And then, excuse me, at the end of the session, I ask them the important questions. What were your last thoughts when your soul left your body? Because that often sets up the next lifetime. I ask them, what are the parallels between your life now and that life? How are their behavior patterns the same? And then are there any people from that life that are in your life now? And if so, what's their role? So we take a look at all of that. If they opt to do the soul writing, we do it at that point. So I bring them almost all the way back to full consciousness, not all the way. And then I tell them, put a pen in your hand, paper on your lap, and I tell them how to do the soul writing, very brief instructions on how to do it. And then they put their pen down, and then I do the same thing at my end. I'll ask my guides if they have a message on behalf of this person. And then I'll get that, and I'll write it while they're writing, and then we compare what each of us wrote, and then that would be the end of the session. So, I have different sessions for different issues. For instance, if people are dealing with a chronic illness, then we do the regression for physical karma, looking to see if the physical condition they're dealing with in this life had its origins in a previous life. And then I've got the life between life, what I call the pre-life planning session. And they could do a traditional regression as well, with or without the soul writing. Or if they want, they can have a private soul writing lesson with me. So those are all things that I do with clients on Zoom. And I thanks to COVID, I have to find something positive about it. Everybody's gone on Zoom. I never thought of doing regressions on Zoom until COVID came. But actually, it's better on Zoom than it is in person, because the person at the other end is in their own home and they're comfortable. And, there's no anxiety so much as if they had to get in a car and drive. Plus, it's opened me up to a global clientele. So
I could see that being a help.
Right. So it's been a blessing, and it's worked very well. And so that's how I do them now. I gave up my office when COVID hit because I didn't need it anymore. And so now I just do everything over Zoom. And people could look on my website and find all the different types of sessions I do. And then if they're ever interested, they can book it right online.
And I find that fascinating, because when I was going through that website, I just thought, well, wow, there's a lot of stuff here. How did she do all that? And it is a great website. So just so you all know. And it is JoAnneDiMaggio.com.
Yeah.
So I will put that in chat so people will have it. And there is so much information. I love how, your cover page is beautiful, but the quote is better: unleash the wisdom and power of 1,000 lifetimes through past life therapy to discover your soul's design and purpose within your current and past life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who doesn't want to know that? Because, what if you're fighting against where you're actually supposed to be, and you don't even realize, A, why you're doing that, and B, you got to accept the blessings that you're given.
Yeah, I think so.
For you.
Yeah, I think regression work really answers that why question.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this happening to me? Why do I have this illness? Why do I have this relationship issue? Why can't I deal with money? Why do I feel, why do I overeat or undereat? It's just endless. Any question you have about your life, that why question is answered with regression.
I think that's awesome. I mean, when I was first learning that, you do this to yourself, you're the one that made the agreement to be here this go round, right? And you're the one who has entered into contracts with other people who, they're going to keep showing up in your life, whether you recognize the face or not. Mm-hmm. The energy is always going to be there.
Right.
And, I was very offended the first time I realized that this was all my fault. I really, really was. I am not pulling any punches, because I had been, I had a great family for a long time, and then, with the way of the world, it wasn't. Yeah. And so I spent a lot of time casting blame until I learned that, I went and took care of myself and got therapy and realized that this was not my problem that was causing the behavior, that the behaviors were already embedded in the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, I'm justified in being so angry, but not so much, because I chose to be there. So what was I learning, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'm still dealing with those questions. I was just talking today to my daughter about a pattern that I have that resurfaced again this week. And it really threw me for a loop, because, you think you work on this and that it's over with, and then it boils up again and you go, oh, I still have some work to do in that area. So it's, but if you have the regression and you know what the issues are, and you know why you came here, you know what you brought in with you, it is so much easier to deal with it than going in the dark and not knowing at all what's going on. Yeah. So it has enormous value.
Well, I certainly found that, and mine was not even past life. I mean, I just went and found a psychologist who happened to be a friend of our family and knew a lot of our history, and said, can I come see you? And so I did. And finally, he said, you're fine. You're out. I'm going to take your hour for somebody that needs it. I'm like, I'm not done. He's like, you're done. You're fine. You have everything grieving for you. And I was not ready to be done. It was scary to go out into that world and not know that I could come and, bend an ear forever.
Yeah.
But it did me wonders, because I wonder if I would have left if he had just been riding the insurance or something. Who knows? Well, I know I would not have stayed, because I knew he was right.
Yeah.
So I guess people would recognize when they were done and got the information they needed to go and use to work on themselves too. Does that happen?
Yeah, most people only need one session. I don't get a lot of repeat clients because we go right to the root of the issue with the regression. It goes right through. It doesn't touch the symptoms, it goes to the root. And once you expose that root, you can deal with it, heal it, and then you can move on.
Wow. Isn't that awesome?
It is very powerful.
Well, I know that people have, this is going to have to wait till the next hour because we're at the top of the hour. But it's a great question. I'm going to write it down. Because otherwise it'll be gone. But it is time for us to go and take our top of the hour news break. And you know what I always say? Every day there is something good happening in this world. Let's see if they report it. So enjoy a beverage, get up and walk around, maybe throw a few cartwheels if you're Brian D. Parsons. And we will just have a nice little chat when we get back. Y'all take care. See you in just a bit.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. In eastern Kentucky, hundreds of people gathered for a reproductive rights rally. This after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last week. As Stan Ingold from member station WEKU reports, they showed up despite threats of severe weather.
The crowd packed into a courtroom in Pikeville, Kentucky, the heart of coal country in Appalachia, for a reproductive rights rally in the wake of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Pikeville Pride hosted the event. One of the keynote speakers, U.S. Senate candidate Charles Booker, told the crowd this decision hurts the court.
Do you realize the theory that was lifted up to overturn Roe v. Wade? One, this is horrific. They have upturned legal precedent. This is really the erosion of the Supreme Court. This is damning.
Kentucky is one of the states with a trigger law that went into effect the same day the court decision came down. For NPR News, I'm Stan Ingold in Pikeville, Kentucky.
Meanwhile, several lawmakers in France say they are introducing a bill to enshrine abortion rights in its constitution, as NPR's Joe Hernandez reports.
Two members of the French Parliament are proposing to add the right to an abortion to the European country's constitution. One tweeted that what happens elsewhere must not happen in France. The lawmakers are from the same political party as French President Emmanuel Macron, who recently won re-election. However, his party lost seats in parliamentary elections earlier this month as far-left and far-right parties made gains. Reacting to the U.S. Supreme Court decision, Macron said abortion was a fundamental right for women and that it should be protected. Abortions are legal in France through the first 14 weeks of pregnancy. Joe Hernandez, NPR News.
Ukrainian officials say a barrage of Russian missiles hit several neighborhoods in Kyiv early today. At least one person was killed, and rescuers say they pulled several people out of the rubble. NPR's Emily Fang reports the rise in attacks comes after nearly 2 months of quiet in the capital.
Smoke hung in the air as rescue workers dug through the remnants of 2 residential buildings struck between 6 and 7 a.m. on Sunday. 4 Russian missiles hit this downtown neighborhood, which hadn't been hit since late April. More missiles hit Kyiv late morning. The strikes are part of a wave of Russian strikes that have hit far into Ukraine's west, which had been relatively quiet after Ukrainian forces beat back Russian soldiers into a retreat from Kyiv in late March. Emily Fang, NPR News, Kyiv.
The price of a gallon of gas dropped slightly in the past 2 weeks, down 4 cents at $5.05 a gallon. That's on average. It's the first drop in 9 weeks, but it still is $1.90 higher than it was 1 year ago. Nationwide, the highest average prices in the San Francisco Bay Area at $6.39 a gallon. You're listening to NPR News. Pride parades took place in cities around the country today, including New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. The city is holding its 52nd annual parade and the first in-person celebration in 2 years. This amid new fears about the potential erosion of freedoms won through decades of activism. The annual marches took place after at least one Supreme Court justice signaled that the court could reconsider the right to same-sex marriage. Top Gun Maverick and Elvis are in a tight race for first place at the box office this weekend. NPR's Bob Mondello has more.
Only in Hollywood could a king beat an ace, but when the dust clears, the king of rock and roll,
ladies and gentlemen, here's Elvis Presley,
has a real shot at topping Hollywood's ace fighter pilot.
Good morning, aviators. This is your captain speaking.
Weekend estimates for Elvis and Top Gun Maverick are identical at $30.5 million. That's a surprisingly high start for the King's biopic and a robust hold for the Ace's fifth weekend. Thrillers Jurassic World Dominion and The Black Phone are close behind, evidence that cinemas are finally bouncing back from the pandemic. This is the first time since the summer of 2017 that 4 films have each made more than $20 million in a single non-holiday weekend. Bob Mondello, NPR News.
U.S. futures contracts are trading lower at this hour. All 3 major indices are down about 0.3%. Crude oil futures are also lower, down 1% at $106.48 a barrel. I'm Janine Herbst, NPR News.
Not everybody wants to run around the White House or Congress all day. That's where the NPR Politics podcast comes in. At 5 p.m., NPR's best political reporters get together and break down the biggest political stories. No noise, just friends making sense of Washington. Listen to the NPR Politics podcast every weekday.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back for the second hour of Fate Mag Radio. I am so pleased that you are here because I am having just a fantastic time with tonight's guest. JoAnne DiMaggio is she's just a whole lot of really cool things. I have never called a guest full of good things, but she is a researcher. And she is a past life regressionist. She is internationally recognized, actually, as a researcher, teacher, author, and, well, not regressionist, but past life therapist. She's published 6 books. And in 1987, she began devoting all of her time to her esoteric studies. And she specializes in past life exploration, research, and therapy. So she spent a lot of years working on her own, and that with her experience as the director of her own past life research organization gives people the comfort of knowing that she's dedicated, that she has firsthand knowledge, really, of the emotional, physical, psychological, and spiritual experiences. That says a whole lot, but I'm going to add to that, she is easy to talk to and has great information to offer, and I am having a blast. And y'all know that I get excited and tongue-tied when I am getting, information that I have been seeking, and that's happened a little bit here and there. And JoAnne, I'm so glad that you have stuck in there because I know that you are not feeling very good, and I am so thankful that you are here.
Well, thank you. When I talk about this, I tend to stop thinking about what's ailing me. So this is a good digression for me.
Awesome. Well, let's kick that up a notch, and we'll just have you pain-free in just a few minutes.
Okay.
But, one thing, and pretty much your webpage gets into all of this too, but I'm curious, when was the first time that past life regression was actually considered a real thing? When was this brought to the fore for discussion?
For me, or
as a science?
Oh, I have no clue. It's been around for eons. It goes back thousands of years, the belief in reincarnation. But in terms of past life work, that's a lot more recent, I believe. But I don't know. As a matter of fact, I was going to start to study that because I'm going to be speaking at the Ancient Mysteries Conference that the ARE hosts in October. So I'm going to be talking. I have had people who have had ancient past lives come up. And so I'm going to be presenting those case studies. And, it's not so much the lifetime that you had, but how it's impacting you now. That's the important thing. So,
sure.
So like in TJ's case, he had been Alexander the Great. Well, big deal, really. I have met some people who claim to be famous. There are multiple Thomas Jeffersons roaming around, especially where I live. I live outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, where the original Thomas Jefferson lived. And I had one woman came to me for a session. She said believed she was Patrick Henry. And I said, what makes you think you're Patrick Henry? She says, well, he was a good talker and so am I. And I thought, I am not judgmental. I do not, when people come to me and they tell me what they're seeing in a past life, I never negate it.
Right.
But when it comes to somebody famous, there's a lot more to it than just because they were a good talker and you're a good talker does not mean that you were them. So, and most people who were famous in a past life, Kat, they're actually very, very humble people.
Yeah.
They don't go around bragging, oh, I was George Washington, or I was Napoleon, or I was Cleopatra.
There's a lot of Cleopatras running around, though, when the subject comes up.
There are, and obviously somebody has to have been her.
Absolutely.
But, and then they come up with all these theories about, splitting souls and parallel lives and walk-ins and all this. And I just think I never say no, but in my experience and all the years I've been researching this and teaching and writing about it, that's just not the way it works. So that's why I love Edgar Cayce, because I never knew Edgar Cayce to be wrong about anything that he shared. He did 14,000 readings in his lifetime. 12,000 of those were health readings, because he's considered the father of holistic medicine. So people were coming to him or writing to him because they had a physical condition that traditional medicine was not addressing. And so he would go into his trance and he'd come up with the remedy. So a lot of the Cayce remedies are still available today. And he was just so far ahead of his time. It just blows my mind. The other 2,000 readings that he did were more life readings, which is where he started to get into people's past lives, which when he first started to do that, it really shocked him, because, Mr. Cayce was a very religious Christian man. He taught Sunday school. He read the Bible every year of his life, the whole Bible once a year he'd read it. And so when this information about reincarnation came out, he didn't want anything to do with it. So it took a few weeks where he just was trying to sit with it and figure out why is Spirit giving me this information? Once he got comfortable with it, then he did include it in his reading. So many times a person would come to him for a reading, and if they came to him for a health reading, sometimes he'd say to them, well, the reason for your obesity in this life is because you made fun of obese people in previous lifetime, or the reason that you're blind in this life is because you gouged out the eyes of your enemy in a previous life. So there was always this tit for tat. That's how karma worked. This is you're dealing with this now, and this is why. And so in all the readings that he gave, like I said, I just never have found him to be wrong. So when he said that this little baby that came to him in 1936, when he was 2 days old, and he said this was the soul that was Thomas Jefferson and Alexander the Great, I have no reason to doubt that that's true.
Right. You know, I have, as we had talked about, I have just actually begun learning about him. Mm-hmm. And the experiences I had with his followers prior to just getting my own research together to go through was not very convincing, because it just seemed a little bit showmanish. You know, there's just a little bit too much theater in their behaviors. And so I just kind of thought, wow, was he that much of a showman? And so I've been reading all kinds of things about him, and I think I would have liked him if I had a chance to meet him. I think I would like him. So,
yes. Yeah,
you know, I mean, he was doing good.
He was.
He wasn't, you know, weird or scared. Well, maybe a little weird, aren't we all? But not scary or ugly or anything. He was just somebody who had a gift and decided to use it for the good.
Oh yeah, and he helped so many people, and you know, he's been gone since 1945, and we're still benefiting from those readings.
Yeah.
And the uniqueness of the story about TJ is that he lived with Mr. Casey on and off for the first 8 years of TJ's life. And so he actually, you know, was there in the morning and afternoon and evening and bedtime. And, you know, Mr. Casey was grooming him. Mr. Casey used to take him out to the pier in the back of his house. There was a lake, and they used to go fishing together. There's some endearing pictures of the two of them fishing. And TJ was starting, I think, around 2 years old. And on that pier, Mr. Casey was teaching this little boy. He was pouring all this wisdom in the vessel of this little boy, teaching him about reincarnation, the creation story, karma, grace, how to read auras. I mean, that was his classroom. That was TJ's classroom, to go out and fish with Mr. Casey and learn all of these things, you know. So Mr. Casey definitely had something in mind for TJ, but he was not his biological child. And so actually TJ was the nephew of Mr. Casey's secretary, Gladys Davis. And when TJ was born, he was born to an alcoholic mother. So he said he spent 9 months sloshing around in a womb that was full of alcohol. When he was born, he said he was all dried up like a piece of wood. And the doctor told his parents he won't live more than 2 days. Oh, wow. And so Casey told Gladys, he said, bring him to me. And she brought him to him, and he did a reading on the baby and told him what to give him. And they did. And he was fine after that. So Casey did a lot of health readings on TJ in those first years that they were together. But the book kind of chronicles the years, what was going on socioeconomically in Virginia Beach in 1936. You know, you're coming out of a depression, you're going into World War II. What was that like? You know, he was separated from his father for years. His father went into the Army, served in World War II. The mother couldn't hold down a job. They were moving from pillar to post, it seemed. So he did not have a very stable upbringing. And Mr. Casey kept telling him he laid out everything that his parents needed to do in order for this child to grow up and do the things that Casey said he could do, but they didn't do it. They didn't provide him with that stability. And so his life went on a different trajectory altogether. And, he never fulfilled that prophecy.
Which is tragic.
It is tragic, because we might be in a whole different place right now had that happen.
And I don't think that's unreasonable to believe.
No, he's always said to me, he said, JoAnne, all the answers to humanity's questions are in the readings.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the people have to do is go there and read it, and it's right in front of them. But of course, not everybody knows that or wants to bother with it. The readings are difficult to get through because the language is difficult. So you have to be patient, or then you have to go to somebody who's actually, sort of rewritten it in a way that's easier to digest. But if you stick with it, you can get the gist of it. You can get the understanding of it.
Well, I have tried to work my way through all of the Nostradamus.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty, very hard reading.
Mm-hmm.
Because those quatrains are very, well, the writing of the period, and plus he is trying to be, a little bit more, he's trying to give clues, not give clues. He's seeing things, he doesn't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're going through it, it's just kind of like, I either need a lot of alcohol or a lot of Advil. Because I'm going to get a headache. Either way. But it's been a while since I picked those up. I think that I will pick up Mr. Casey's and find a source for that and go through it.
And ARE members have access to those readings, so they can get to them at any point in time. And the readings are all by number. So yes. Because we're trying to preserve the anonymity of the people, but in TJ's case, and I have this in the book with permission, his number is 1208. So if you're an ARE member and you go into the readings and you type in 1208, all of the readings that were given for him will come up. But it's also, you can, if you're a ARE member and you go into the readings, you can type in, if you're having a physical condition, you could type in diabetes, and those readings will come up. So it's just a enormous resource for people that's, I think, very underused.
Well, it certainly sounds like a font of information.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that's where all of that research has gone.
That's the research part of the Association for Research and Enlightenment. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I will be doing my membership when we get off the air.
Okay.
So, yeah, I get into more trouble with people that come on, and they've got great websites, they've got great programs, and not everything is my color Kool-Aid, because there's a lot of individuals out there and everybody's different.
Of course.
But this has been something I've been delving into, and to have a resource like that is absolutely going to do a great deal for me, I think.
And their library is second to none in terms of a metaphysical library. I think it's second only to the Vatican.
Really?
When I go to Virginia Beach and I go into that library, I just like to sit there and let all the wisdom from all those books just sort of descend on me. It's my happy place.
No doubt.
Yeah, my daughter says her happy place is Target, but my happy place is
that's my grandson's
library.
Happy place.
Yeah.
He's 3. He likes to shop.
Oh,
but yeah, and he's got a little sister, a new little sister now that he can shop for. So I don't know if he will, but that's an option.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you have grandchildren that you look at them like, with different eyes than you did your own children, because you know so much more. And you know that they picked you. They picked this family to come into, and you wonder why. So I keep looking at them for any hints of a past life. And I have a almost 6-year-old grandson and a 3-year-old granddaughter and a 6-week-old granddaughter. And the 3-year-old, she's an interesting little character because she insists that my grandson's name is Godfrey, and that is not his name. And she calls my husband Bay, and I looked up Bay, and it was referencing a beloved, like a relationship, like someone you love. And I thought, wow, where is this coming from? So I'll be interested to listen to her little stories more in the future. Because, until they're 5 years old, children do remember their past lives.
Yeah.
And they may say they're talking to an imaginary friend, and in reality, it's their spirit guide with them. So you just have to give them an open platform to do that, and encourage that exploration on their part, not shut them down by telling them, no, that's not right. So I'm looking forward to what they're going to tell me in the future.
The following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there. Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait. Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? You see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step, after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page, is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics, from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of, a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Well, I was always getting shut down, and so I try not to do that to mine. I have a 7 and a 4-year-old grandsons who are my son and daughter-in-law's kids, and they are trippy. I just love it. They're so wanting to be with you and share with you and tell you the story of their days. And
yeah, that unconditional love, that's why I had children, so that I could have grandchildren.
And they are so much easier because they go home.
They go home. That's right.
And, I wouldn't mind if they stayed forever, but I also had a lot more energy when mine were. I could chase better.
Yeah.
I could catch.
Yeah.
But, when someone makes the decision to come and reach out to you, if they call to schedule an appointment or reach out to schedule an appointment, then can you do those from the road, or do you need to wait till you get back from whatever conference or presentation or
No,
experience?
I can do them while I'm traveling, as long as I, know, if I know ahead of time, I can bring the script and the paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork involved because I have worksheets for every different type of regression that I do. And I do not record my sessions because Spirit always erases my recordings.
Yes.
I don't know why, but they erase my recordings every single time. So I gave up and I said, all right, already, you don't want me to record these, but I'm old school and I take shorthand. So I have my worksheets. So I keep up with the client, whatever they're saying, I'm writing it down. And then at the end of the session, I give them a written transcript. So they'll get it. They'll get the transcript of the session. If they don't want to do the soul writing right then and there, some people are really exhausted after a session and they want to just come back. They don't want to go deeper and do the writing. In which case, if they've paid for a session with the soul writing, I'll do it on my own. And then I'll add that to the transcript and send it to them. So one way or the other, they'll get their soul writing message. So yeah, when I go to Virginia Beach next month to teach the soul writing class, I had someone that's taking that class ask me if I would do a regression. And so I'll just do it in her hotel room. And then like this last session that I went to ARE before I was injured in the fall that I had people asking me, was I going to do regressions there? And I didn't even think about it, that people would want that because I'm so used to doing them online. But yeah, if I know in advance that there's going to be as long as I have a quiet place to do them, that's the key. So it's a hotel room and they can put a do not disturb sign and it's relatively quiet. I don't know how quiet it would be on the beach in the middle of summer, but anyway,
not very.
We'll try. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I just think that's interesting. So you have a script prepared to help them ease into their hypnotic state?
Right. The script is just simply to kind of keep things on track. The first part of it is me doing an awful lot of talking because I'm just trying to get them deeper and deeper and deeper into a relaxed state so that their conscious mind just recedes and then their subconscious comes forward because that's where all of their past life memories are stored. So I want them to go deep and I want them to I tell them, I said, you know how you feel in the morning when you first wake up and you're getting out, you can open your eyes if you want, you could get out of bed if you want, where you are, but you're so comfortable and so deeply embedded in that bed that you don't want to get up. That's the feeling I want them to get, to go to that level before we start to do it. And then I also tell them, I said, stick with your first impression. A lot of people are so afraid they're going to be making this up. That's the number one thing, what if this is just my imagination? I assure them it isn't. And actually after the session, I asked them, do you still think that was your imagination? And they said, no. If they experience emotion in the regression, that's a true sign that it was real. Because I cannot make them cry. I cannot make them laugh. I cannot make them do anything they wouldn't normally do in a conscious state. So those are all ways that, and if they get there's a lesson in it for them that they understand on some deep soul level, then they usually don't question it any further.
Well, I am just so intrigued by that, because I hadn't considered the emotional responses being validation, but that's true. You cannot evoke that.
Right. I've had people who've really burst into tears when they reach a certain point and they tell me this event that happened to them. They just emotionally respond to it. And, I let them sit with that for a while, but I don't focus in on it because that was then and this is now, and we need to understand it, what caused it, what happened, and as a result of that, what was your life like after that, and so then we just keep going forward, and usually after the significant event, we go to their death. They don't feel anything. They're just like they're watching a movie. We work through that. Then I ask them, what were your last thoughts as your soul left your body? Which is really fascinating, the things that they say, because then you get a lot of what they're working on now. And then, like I had mentioned earlier, are there any people from that life in your life now, and what are your behavior patterns that are similar? So, it really is very introspective, and it covers a lot of territory in the course of an hour and a half or 2 hour session.
Wow. I have a friend that it's like we've known each other forever, because we have. And she is into getting the past life regressions. Mm-hmm. And she's had a couple of them now with different people. And she said it's really odd, because every time that she lands, because they just have her go into where she is, I'm always there. And in one, I was like a guy, just, palling around guy. The other, I was her best friend, and she was engaged, and we were all giggly about wedding stuff. And that was in New York before there were the brick roads. It was still mud. So, but I said, how do you know that was me? She said, I know your energy. Mm-hmm. And I recognize your energy when I feel it. And I was like, oh, well, I'm cool with both of those. So, continue. Tell me where I'm at next. But it's really interesting, because I was surprised that she was doing that, because she's actually very, very, she's very spiritual, but she's very staid and plateau, doesn't get really nuts about stuff, doesn't have a lot that would make me think that she would need to go back in time and figure out why she was away, but she finds such joy in those experiences, I think, and information also.
I think when you find a soul that you had known in a previous lifetime, especially if it was a soul that you greatly loved, there is nothing that compares to that kind of love on that level. So if they were a twin soul, people use the term soulmate too loosely. A soulmate is not necessarily a love interest. A soulmate is somebody simply that you've been with before. Right. So it could be anybody. But that love, if you remember loving that person, being in love with that person, and then you find them in this life, it is the most extraordinary journey you could be on. They know you on such an intimate level that, it's like, even if you have a falling out, you still love them. You just can't help yourself. And so I've had that experience where I've met people from that 18th century life I mentioned to you. And it's been an interesting ride, and I keep thinking I should write about that, but it might get a little bit too close to home, too personal. But I may still do it and tell that story, because I think that it's, you know, a love that it just reaches through the centuries. That's the one thing you take with you when you die, is that love. You don't take anything else.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just that's why I tell people when they look at the souls, when I'll say to them, did you know this soul in a previous life? I'll say, you know, we travel together as a pod, like a soul family in a pod. The same souls have been with you from the beginning of time, so they know you very, very intimately. But we change gender and we change roles.
Yeah.
So your mother in this life could have been your husband in a previous life. But the essence of their soul remains the same. That's why when your friend said, I could feel out your energy, she was right on, because that's exactly what you do. If you want to really, you know, some people you say, oh, they seem so familiar to me. There's something about them. Well, you're feeling out their energy, and that energy is matching an energy that you knew once before. So, so we work toward identifying those people when we do the pre-life planning session, regression. That's just a really important element of identifying the souls that are in this life with you.
You know, I think that would be pretty cool too, because the whole, for me, I come across them, and people who have already died ahead of me, who have crossed ahead of me in this lifetime, I have felt already while I'm still in this lifetime. And is that normal?
To feel them?
Well, I mean, to feel like they're still there doing the work, I guess, still maintaining their contract, for lack of a better thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Doesn't end. It doesn't end with death. They're still connected to you. That's why I feel like, you know, with this book about TJ, I remember I saw my pre-life planning session. I saw myself standing in front of the Council of Elders, and I didn't want to write that book. And I said I didn't want to write the book. And one of the souls that is with me in this life said, no, she'll write it. And I said, I don't want to write it. So, but I made the promise that I would. And so that sort of haunted me for years. And the way the universe brought TJ and I together was just divinely orchestrated. So, because what were the odds that I'd even find him or meet him?
Right. And then there he was, where you were.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of my favorite parts of that whole experience, is that the choice was taken away from you also by him being there.
Well, I could have said no at any time. And I did say no a couple of times. I said, I don't want to work with you. He was unreliable, and, getting frustrated with him, and a lot of things were happening. And I just thought, no, this is crazy. But in the end, I just thought, if I'm a reporter for the universe just handed me this really plum assimenment. And I thought, I'm gonna, this is what they want me to write. Okay, I'll write it. It took me 8 years, but I did it, and I'm glad that I did. I'm very proud of that book. It's my first biography, and he was very happy with it, which meant a lot to me.
Oh,
so,
that would mean a lot.
Yeah. He's here. He lives here in Charlotte. Like I said, he's not too far from me. He's 86 years old now. He's probably one of the few living recipients of a Casey reading that's still alive. So, So I think he's a treasure. That's my opinion.
Well, I would agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you look surprised. I do try to read everybody's books. I can't always get through every one of them before we get a show scheduled, but I'm so lucky because this was basically dropped in my lap. So I'm such a blessed woman to be able to do what I love and love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And do you find, well, I actually wanted to ask you this question, and I just don't know what it is, but you have your master's in transpersonal studies, which is now known as transpersonal psychology.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Well, so transpersonal is, above and beyond. So it takes in the combination of psychology, anthropology, religious studies, alternative health, things that are sort of not mainstreamed studies. So dreams, all those, I took those, I did that, got my master's from Atlantic University, which is the ARE's school. Was founded the same year, 1931, I believe, that the ARE was founded. And I want to tell you something. Those were like the 3 years that it took me to get that degree. Those were like the best years because I was totally immersed in the Casey material and working with some fabulous mentors, teachers, I thought when I did it, because I just did it in the not too long ago, and I thought, I'm too old to go back to school. But I ended up being their exact demographic because it's a lot of men and women who are older who want to go back and, you want to get your master's degree, but you don't know in a traditional school what area of study you want, and then this falls in your lap and you realize you could get a master's degree in studying the very things that mean so much to you. Mm-hmm. And it's greatly added to my, my professional life. I got my spiritual mentor certification through Atlantic University as well. And this was well after I had gotten my certification in hypnotherapy. So, so I've got that, I worked with some of the leading edge past life researchers in the country, and I just.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Dedicated myself to this, really hoping to convince more and more people that it's not something to fear. It's not something that goes against their religious beliefs, their upbringing. Because I know that most of the religions, Christian religions, don't believe in reincarnation. But that's a whole other topic.
That is.
But I just, I have found it to be enormously meaningful in my life. And when I share it with others, it becomes as meaningful to them as it does to me.
Well, I love that. But we will have to have you back when everything is put back together and healed, and make sure that nothing is wandering around loose in there. And I'd like to have that conversation on the religious studies side in comparison, because there's a lot of truth in that. But Buddhism and such isn't very well accepted here either, and and that changes all of the things that we as a society need changed. So does this.
Oh, if everybody believed in reincarnation, we would not have the problems we have today.
I agree with you.
You could not possibly be a racist, because you have been every race. You have been every religion. You're looking at yourself when you're looking at these other people. So how can you criticize them? How can you hate them? You were once walking in their shoes. So I think that, if that was embraced, that it would be a whole different world. It really would be. And to know that you could be both male and female. You're not always going to be female. You're going to be male, and vice versa. So there's just a lot to it that if you take it all in, I think that your attitude towards your fellow man would change drastically.
I absolutely agree.
You wouldn't have the problems we have today.
Well, the first time that I was ever truly exposed to Buddhism was through a Tibetan monk who had come to South Alabama and was working with the Eastern Shore Tibetan Society, and he wound up in Arkansas teaching Eastern religions. So, his path was very diverse as well. And he was making a change everywhere he went. And I like that.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate to have been able to know him. So
people come in and out of our lives, I ask people when we do a regression, I said, tell me of any significant relationships that you've had, people that have come into your life and made this imprint on you where they changed your perspective, or they introduced you to something different. And then it could be that they came in and then they went out. It could be that they came in and they're still with you. But those kinds of relationships exist for all of us. And stop to think about it, then who came in and why, what was the role that they played, and it all fits together. It's just so beautiful the way that it's like a mosaic.
It is a mosaic.
And so it makes perfect sense to me. It's a lot more easier to digest than some other theories about what life is all about.
I agree. That I just felt like we were going to have such a great time talking with each other, and that we shared a lot of ideas and maybe thought processes about things that are a little bit different than most people are accustomed to, and I loved this conversation.
I did too.
I am so glad that you felt like you could do it. And I'm going to be checking on you to make sure that you're okay.
Thanks.
But,
yeah.
Well, before we go, you want to tell people how they can reach out and get in touch with you?
Sure. They can go to my website, which is www.JoAnneDiMaggio.com. It's spelled JoAnneDiMaggio.com. And that website is all inclusive. It's got a fun little test you could take to see what kind of a regression would be best for you. I have a blog on there, so you could read articles that I've written. A lot of the podcasts I've been on are there, the information on all of my books. And if you're interested in a session with me, all of the different kinds of sessions are listed, and there's an online calendar, so you could go in there and you could pick a date and time that's best for you and book the appointment. When I get the notice that the appointment's booked, I will, be in touch with you to confirm. I think that everything that they'll need is there. And they want to shoot me an email, it's JoAnne@JoAnneDiMaggio.com. I answer all of my emails. So if you have a question or you just want to, share something, please be in touch.
Well, I'm sure that you're going to be hearing from people because this has been fantastic.
Well, thanks, Kat.
And I do want to let people know that you produced a line of inspirational greeting cards too, using your soul writing.
I do. They're called Spirit Song. And they were written with me meditating on a famous quotation. And one of the cards was chosen as one of 6 in the world for its creative excellence in the category of sympathy by the International Greeting Card Association. So I'm really proud of them. And I've had them for quite a long time, but they're timeless, and I'm trying to get them out there again. So so those are available as well as my books. And I'm working on doing some online teaching, courses that you could take and meditations that you can download. I just have to get healthy and be able to do all of that and work it into my day. Like I said, I'm writing that book on the Beatles and spirituality, and really hope to get that done soon because I think it's an interesting book.
Well, it's clever.
It's different, I think, than the other Beatle books that are out there. So, I'm excited to share all of that with everybody. And, I've got so many books on my head. They're kind of like circling my head like planes at O'Hare Airport. They're waiting to come in for a landing. And I'm telling Spirit, would you please keep me healthy and here for a while so I can get these done in this lifetime? So that's what I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah. Well, I saw that you were getting these classes together, so I'm pretty excited about that myself.
Yeah, thank you. I am too.
It's going to be something interesting. And I am just so appreciative of you. You are a big, big trooper to be still sitting here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Kat.
But I have just enjoyed you.
Thank
When you feel better, let's go ahead and get you back on. I'd love to talk about that Beatles book too.
Okay. I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted.
With all the things. Yes.
All
right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kat. Good night.
Good night. And that's been such a great show. I hope that y'all enjoyed yourselves. I did. And I think that JoAnne did too. And just so y'all know, she has an injury and she has to go to a physician tomorrow. So since I have great empathy for that experience, it's just right. But I appreciate y'all listening. I hope y'all got out just as much out of this conversation with JoAnne as I did. I think she's a lovely woman and her work fascinates me. And so if you've ever wanted to get into your past lives or just experience some regression therapy so that you can understand maybe why you have the things wrong that you do, it's okay. But we will see you next week. And, I'm really very excited. We have had such great shows here of late, and we're going to be having more. I am going to be traveling the the second and third week of July. So Frank Lee is going to be filling in for me. Whether he is doing a live broadcast or pushing a button, I don't know yet. He's going to be surprising us. But I think that you will really enjoy him. For those who aren't familiar with him, he is my research partner with our American Noetics Research and Studies. So you'll enjoy that. He's also been my research partner in the paranormal, as we have worked together for years. He has a new bride, Miss Carla. So he's a little busy. So I'm glad he's taking time to do all this. But I will see y'all same cat time, same cat channel. And I hope that you have just a great evening. We'll see you next time. Good night.